You ever worked around someone who had a really bad attitude, and every time they came into the room, or every time they made a phone call to you, or every time they sent you a text message or an email or some kind of communication, it just seemed like their whole conversation dripped with their negative attitude? Maybe it was about the way you do your job. Maybe it was about the job or the company in general. Maybe it was about their cat. But their attitude just kind of drove everything in your conversation. If they had a bad day, you had a bad day. It was certain. If something went wrong in their home life, something went wrong at work. You ever worked around somebody like that? I think we have all at some time worked around someone like that, and if we're not careful, we will become someone like that. See, one of the challenges with leadership is being the person that drives the behavior through right attitudes, right choices, right thoughts, right ideas. Because as John Maxwell says, leadership, it's influence. Nothing more and nothing less. But when we forget or fail to understand the depth of the influence that comes from our attitude, then we can influence people in a very negative way very, very easily. We can also forget or fail to know that their attitude will influence us in a significant way. So what is an attitude? Well, an attitude, by definition, according to Dr. Caroline Leaf, neuroscientist, is a thought plus a feeling. Let me say that another way. The way you feel about what you think and the way you think about what you feel. That's a mathematical equation, like 2 plus 3 is 5, and 3 plus 2 is 5, and 5 minus 3 is 2, and 5 minus 2 is 3. Every time, no matter which direction you look at it, that balance of equation is the same. And so it is with thought plus feeling equals attitude, or feeling plus thought equals attitude, the way you think about the way you feel. Now, the power in all of that is that you have choice. And there's also exerted influence on how you think and how you feel. You get to choose. But if you think and act and allow your feelings to come as a result of that, you have a lot more influence on those feelings. See, sometimes the most powerful thing to do about a set of emotions is to act on them. That can be criminal behavior. There are people who have reacted emotionally without thought. They let their feelings drive their actions. They let their feelings drive their behavior until their feelings driving their thoughts, their action, and their behavior becomes a lifestyle, and every habit starts first with a feeling. You're going to think through that for a moment. Ask yourself, are there times in my life that I have allowed myself to become a slave to my feelings? However I feel about a circumstance, my reactions, my behaviors, my habits are the same toward that feeling every time. Here's an example. Are you a stress smoker? And I don't care if it's real cigarettes or vape or some other form of tobacco. When you have stress, do you seek out nicotine? When you have stress, do you seek out alcohol or food or some way of mental escape, such as video games or binge watching Netflix? See, all of these are stress reactions. The stress could be caused by multiple different things in our life, but if we're only reacting to the feeling of feeling stressed out, or the feeling of being angry, the emotions that come along with that, then the state in which we behave through all of those things is going to be very, very similar. And our reactions to those feelings are going to look very similar. Do we lose our cool and raise our voice? Is that the way we react to stressful feelings? Do we find ourselves quiet, just closed off, shutting out everyone because our feelings have been hurt? See, each of these are choices that we have to make. To take every thought captive and beat it into submission, That's our choice. It's also our responsibility. Because if that thought comes in and our immediate reaction to that thought is an emotion that's overwhelming or an emotion that's out of check, an emotion that reacts in violence or reacts in anger, explodes immediately, and you've experienced this. I'd be willing to guess that there's been some time in your life where someone cut you off in traffic, or it was the wrong drink delivered at your favorite coffee shop, or your meal came to the table wrong, that you reacted in an angry outburst and then later thought, wow, that was really over the top given the circumstances. I mean, the person was just trying to change lanes to make their turn, and I got all crazy on them. Or the girl didn't mean to bring the wrong plate to the table. Someone wrote down the table wrong, and it's not her fault, but I yelled at her like she had wounded me. See, those are the kinds of things that happen, responsive behaviors, when your feelings are in control. When you don't think through the process. Now, I want to juxtaposition all of that. I want to contrast all of those thoughts, everything I've just been saying for the last couple of minutes, with this reality. Dr. Cudi, and I cannot remember her first name. Dr. Cudi did a study, and you can just look up her name, C-U-D-I, and look up the Wonder Woman pose on YouTube, and you'll see her TED Talk about the Wonder Woman pose. Here's basically what she said. It has been proven, and we know this to be true, that there are ways to read the human body language, and NLP, and how they work together. So a person who sits with their arms crossed, we've all been taught this, right? This usually means they're angry, unless it's my wife, and then it's because she's always cold because nothing keeps her warm. And she'd be wrapped in a blanket in the front of our Suburban driving down the highway with the heater on, and she's still shivering. She's cold. Most people, though, don't sit like this just because they're cold, but because they're closed off, because they're angry, because they're frustrated, because they're annoyed, because they don't want to hear what else you have to say. And so this body language is a representation of, it's an outward expression of their subconscious thought process. Now, they may not be thinking in their head. In fact, if you ask them, are you angry? Or why are you shutting me out? They'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, sorry. Because it's the subconscious mind that's driving that behavior, usually more than the conscious mind. Most people are not consciously aware of the body movements, their eye movements, their facial movements that give away what they're thinking in their subconscious mind. There are ways to read just eye movement. Looking up, looking down, looking left, looking right. And that those body positions are indicated by the subconscious mind. So many people know various portions of that. That a person who really leans in and they're on the edge of their seat, there's a reason they talk about this at the movies. They were all on the edge of their seats. They were leaned in, they were engaged, they were deeply activated in whatever you're saying to them or whatever's going on in the environment. And so leaned in, leaned out, really aggressive, really relaxed. Each one of those different body languages represents a subconscious thought that's going on. We've all experienced that at some level or another, even if it's talking to a 3-year-old who they turn their little head away and they don't want to see you, and they have that scowl on their face and their little arms are crossed, and sometimes their legs are crossed, and they turn their body away from you. Even my 2-year-old grandson does it. He'll make that face and he'll slam his face into the couch, and he just wants to hide. He wants you to see that he's angry, that he's not happy with what you've said. But he doesn't really have any other way to really express himself. Some of that is conscious thought because it's behavior he's seen and he's modeling. Some of it is subconscious, and as we get older, it's almost all subconscious. We react in a way that we're like, whoa, if I'd been watching myself on camera, I wouldn't have done it that way. Here's what Dr. Cudi's study said, though. The Wonder Woman pose is based on the research and observation that there is a compounding effect of our behavior on our feelings. So when we feel afraid, stressed out, lonely, isolated, a lack of confidence, When we feel those things, our body tends to express them from the subconscious mind to the physical being. And so someone who's fearful, say for a job interview, and this was the scenario Dr. Cootie's research used, if they're fearful in a job interview, they may sit in the pre-interview room with their hands between their knees and their body slumped over and their back is down and they're closed off because they're really thinking in themselves, whether they're praying or meditating or just thinking. Their body language says, I'm not confident. I don't feel like I can do this. I don't think I can win. And so their body language is not only expressing what their subconscious is saying, but it's creating a feedback loop so that the body is also telling the brain, you can't do this. You should turtle up. You should hide yourself. You should cover up. You should protect yourself at all costs because you can't do this. And so there's a feedback loop going on from the subconscious mind saying I can't to the body telling the subconscious mind that I can't. And now you're just in a loop. And if you stay in that loop, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will fail at whatever because both your brain and your body have agreed that you can't succeed. Now, somewhere in there, a choice must be made. You can either choose to stay in this loop, to feel and behave, and feel and behave, to feel and act, to feel and act. Now it's like pistons in a motor. It's just gaining momentum. But if you feel like you lack confidence and you act like you lack confidence, you will lack confidence. You're telling your brain, this is what I want. The contrast to that, is that people who sat in the pre-interview room in her study in this position went into the interview with a very low confidence and a very low self-esteem, and they behaved and portrayed and answered questions as if they had no confidence. So part of her test, part of the research, was to say, we want to take these people who've come in to be a part of the study, the ones that we've observed to be type A people. They're always casual, they're always confident, they're always kicked back. They've always got an answer for everything. They're not intimidated by anybody. They are ready for this. These are the job interview winners every time. And so to put them in the pre-interview room and instruct them for 1 solid minute while they're waiting on the interview to sit in a closed position with their head down and their back bent and their hands between their knees, and to sit there for 1 minute that way. And when they did, the subconscious mind began to catch on to that body language, and they would find themselves walking into the interview room with lower confidence than their norm. And none of them were hired. None of them made it past the interview. On the other hand, the ones who came in and in the initial assessment sat in a very closed-off position, they asked them to assume the Wonder Woman position, to stand in the pre-interview room with their hands on their hips and their feet shoulder-width apart and their eyes up and straight, their back straight, their chest out. And every one of those people, no matter how meek and demure they were when they came in, every one of them that practiced the Wonder Woman pose for 1 minute before they went into the interview were offered the job. Why? Because something in their biochemistry had adjusted itself to match the body physiology of confidence. Do you know that even people who have never been able to have a normal adult conversation enough to be instructed that the victory sign is to throw your hands in the air, people whose mental ability isn't teachable enough or comprehensive enough to be able to understand when we tell people, throw your hands in the air for victory. But you watch them, and even the Special Olympics, even the little bitty ones in the Special Olympics, when they cross that finish line, their hands go in the air. Even when it's not a mirrored neurological reaction. It's not mirror neurons causing their hands to go in the air. They haven't ever seen anybody else do it. But when they win, it's the natural reaction of the body to throw your hands and the victory be in the air. If the body and the brain are that connected, that how we feel is portrayed in how we act, but how we act also is a feedback loop to how we feel. We have choices to make in there that we have to be responsible for. we have to choose how we're going to feel about a certain event or circumstance in our life. We also have to choose how we're going to act or react when those feelings come up. I posted on Facebook yesterday that my expression and experience has been that when wrong actions produce wrong feelings, you're in trouble. Right actions will produce right feelings if you do the right actions long enough. If you allow wrong feelings to drive you into wrong actions, you can destroy your life. Look at the number of people who find themselves not only victims of road rage, but perpetrators of road rage who are now paying a criminal penalty for that. Because their emotions took over. And they didn't decide soon enough to stop the emotional flow before it altered their behavior. So emotions out of control drove their actions, which were also out of control. They became a slave to their emotions. They did, in behavior and action, what their feelings told them to do. Feelings can't be trusted in that way. If feelings are going to be a major driver in your life, they need to be under your control, which means you've got to think about what those feelings are. Thoughts plus feelings equals attitude. You've got to have the right attitude driving your actions if you want to have the right results in your life. Becoming a slave to your emotions, or even worse, a slave to the emotions of someone else, the attitude of someone else, will leave you in a place where you have no control of your circumstances because you have no control of your actions. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control what happens in you. And the way you react, the emotions that you allow to surface and drive your behavior versus the ones that you put a cap on and say, that's not the way I choose to feel. I've thought about this. I've taken that thought captive. I've beat it into submission. And I don't care if the entire world is on fire with anger. I choose to be at peace. That's your choice. That's your decision. That's your responsibility. Now, like I said, though, there are going to be those times when there's a desired feeling and you just have a hard time getting there. I remember talking to a young couple not too long ago, and she said, but don't I have a right to be happy? And I said, well, you only have a right to be happy until it impacts the responsibilities that you have. Or you only have a right to be happy until it infringes on someone else's right to be happy. You can't be happy at everyone else's expense. That's not the way the world works. And it's not free in a free society. You're not free to be happy at everyone else's expense. That's why we have laws. That's why we have social rules. That's why we have social conduct. What's socially acceptable is socially acceptable because the impact it has on others. That's the way it's supposed to work. The idea that I don't feel like I'm in love, I don't feel like I'm happy, I don't feel like, a lot of that is circumstantial. And it'll change minute by minute, day by day, week by week, month by month. But we also have the opportunity to impact the way we feel, both through the choices of what we choose to think about, what we choose to feel, to simply say, I don't want to feel that way, and the actions that we take. See, sometimes to be in love, we have to act like we're loving. And the more we act in a loving manner, the more the feelings of love will rise up in us. Take that for a moment. Yes, we could change our entire society if many people understood that. When you act in a loving way, the feelings of love will rise up in you. It's like the Wonder Woman pose. When you do the right thing, your feelings will follow. Most people don't live their life that way. Most people think and choose simply at the feeling level. They don't have a commitment or a dedication to the right outcome enough to say, I'm going to do what needs to be done, even if I don't currently feel like it, because I know once I've done the right thing, I will feel like that was the right thing. Once I've done what love demands of me, when I've taken the action that love demands of me, then my feelings will fall in line with that. See, most people find that place of impossibility because everybody else says it can't be done, and so they quit. Well, that's not true. Just because everyone else feels that it can't be done doesn't mean it can't be done. Everybody felt like there was no such thing as a 4-minute mile until Roger Bannister. But the first time he ran a 4-minute mile, it suddenly became possible for everybody. It's the collective reticular activating system that says, oh, now that I've seen it done and I know how to do it, I can make it happen as well. All of that is that thought, feeling part of the subconscious mind. Don't forget how powerful that is. Remember that you have the right to choose how you feel. No one else does. You have the right to control every thought that goes through your head, to take it captive, to beat it into submission. You have that right and you have that responsibility. And there may be things in your life that you would like to feel a certain way about, that the feeling probably won't come until you've taken the action necessary first. Don't become a slave to your feelings and emotions. And don't find yourself a slave to somebody else's feelings and emotions. Control your own attitude. And if you have to take preemptive action to change the way you feel, then take action to act right. Your feelings will fall in line. You're going to have to think. You're going to have to choose. You're going to have to act. But I'm telling you, feelings are a fickle thing. They're easily manipulated by other people. And if you trust them to drive your behavior, they will drive you down a dangerous path. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.